Well, as we've been talking about, Prime Minister Stephen Harper and his government may not have a jolly Christmas after all. A new Sun News exclusive poll shows the Conservatives are actually losing ground to the New Democrats. Our Sun News pollster David Coletto brings us numbers from Ottawa.
The Conservatives have a 2-point lead over the New Democrats, and for the Conservatives, it's not much change themselves from the last month. They're only down 1 point. But what's interesting is that the New Democrats are up slightly. So in November, we had them at 29%. You can see there we now have them at 32%. So that's really what's happening is the Conservative numbers are down significantly from a year ago. They're down 6 points from December 2011. But within the last 6 months, they really haven't moved all that much. What's happening is there's still change amongst those who don't support the Conservatives. And last month we saw an uptick for the Liberals. That's holding. This month we saw particularly a decline for the Bloc Québécois in Quebec, which is really driving that New Democrat number up nationally. So as a whole, it is a much closer race than last month, where we had a 7 or 8 point lead for the Conservatives. Now it's down to 2 points. Basically statistically tied. And so as we end 2012, as you said, yeah, the Conservatives are not as jolly as they would have been last month, but this is in line with a lot of the other polling we've seen come out recently.
All right, so how about Quebec? What did the numbers say there?
Yeah, in Quebec, it's interesting. The New Democrats took a hit last month. They were basically tied with the Bloc Québécois. Now they're back up in a significant lead, 39% to 25%. So Quebec remains very fluid. 1 month, you would see a 5 or 6 point swing. So we'll come back to what this all means in a minute. But right now, the New Democrats and Tom Mulcair are the top party in Quebec, with the Liberals and the Conservatives still well back in 3rd and 4th place, respectively.
Let's talk about the West Coast, because those numbers were very strong for the NDP.
They are, and we've seen a slow but steady increase in New Democrat support out on the West Coast in British Columbia. They now have a 12-point lead in our latest poll. Now, the sample size is small, so we need to be cautious about this, but they still do have a lead. And I think when we oversampled in British Columbia a few months ago, we saw similar numbers. And so I think the Conservatives are starting to get, particularly in Vancouver and on Vancouver Island, some of their numbers are starting to weaken, I think, a lot around the Northern Gateway pipeline. The New Democrats provincially also are doing very well, so you would think that the federal NDP may be benefiting from that goodwill that people are showing the provincial party. They're showing it also to the federal party.
Right. And so in the end, when we look at these numbers as a whole, how are the party leader evaluations then shaping up? Yeah,
so we also asked about, do you like or dislike the two main party leaders? We don't have a permanent leader with the Liberals, and these numbers really haven't changed. Stephen Harper remains very polarizing. Very few Canadians have a neutral impression of him. 35% have a positive impression. 46% view him negatively personally. Tom Mulcair, though, remains more positive than negative. We've seen this since he became leader back in March. But despite being leader now for almost 8 months, his numbers are still very soft. There's a lot of people who are aware of him but don't really have an impression. That's the challenge for an opposition leader who, we may pay attention here in Ottawa to what's going on in the House of Commons, but a lot of Canadians aren't. And if you aren't seeing him on TV, if you aren't seeing him in the news, then you're not likely to form an impression. I think that's still Tom Mulcair's challenge right now.
Yeah, the challenge for Stephen Harper, even after all these years, is to get rid of that conspiracy theory that he really is from the dark side, which he has not been able to shake for whatever reason. He's got a big mandate. He could do whatever he wants, but he's not pushing through all these secret agendas that those on the left seem to think he's going to do, but nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Harper, regardless of his agenda, he's also been in power now for quite some time. So that the time you're in power, you slowly lose supporters because you do things that may anger them. But what's still, I think, as we end the year and we look at the political environment in Canada, what remains to be what's unclear is what's going to happen with the Liberals. I think it's pretty. I think if you're a betting man, you would say Justin Trudeau's got a pretty good shot at becoming leader. And I think, that doesn't necessarily hurt the Conservatives or affect their supporters too much. But if I were Tom Mulcair and I look at these numbers and I see that my personal numbers are quite soft, that, from 1 month to the next, voters could be leaving or deciding to vote for my party, it suggests that Justin Trudeau can and possibly will pull a lot of those New Democrats away, both in Quebec and outside of Quebec. And so, Canadian politics is going to continue to be in flux, I think, for some time until people really figure out, what the choices are. We still have a long way to go before the next election. And that's what we're seeing in the numbers, is that we've got a very volatile, uneasy population looking for something that's going to give them some hope, because the economy and the job situation isn't as positive as we really hope it would be.
If it does turn out to be Justin Trudeau, boy, are the debates during election time going to be extremely interesting, because Stephen Harper on the right is very polished. He's got a lot of experience on the stage. Thomas Mulcair, no slouch himself, very strong as well. I'm not sure how Mr. Trudeau would fare, but
we know for one thing, he will. I think his only plus, if he can't compete with them on substance, it's going to be on style, and it does have some impact. And you put Justin Trudeau between those two gentlemen, Tom Mulcair and Prime Minister Harper, and he does appear to be younger, more dynamic, and so that's what's, I think, going to really provide an interesting shake-up to what happens. He doesn't mean he's going to win, but he's certainly going to make Canadian politics a little more interesting than it has been over the past 6 months, I think.
He is David Coletto. He's the CEO of Abacus Data in Ottawa.